annual? I mean, if my building, passes the code, it passes, you know, and so now I've got my permit to be unoccupied, is that an annual renewal where it has to get inspected again? Because, you know, bats could have got in the attic, okay, so, or how does that work? I just think there's a lot of gray here.
Well, we need to add that because I don't see anywhere in here where it says what the duration of the permit is.
Well, I was kind of taking it as 180, but it's not stated anywhere.
I think it should be a yearly thing.
One thing I think, maybe it's just a wording thing rather than call it a permit, because it's not like you're gonna issue a permit. I would call it a registration fee, because the fee would be set forth by council, and it would be an administrative, fee amount. You know, so they would register their vacant building. I think calling it a permit is something you issue somebody, where a registration would be, hey, you're just letting the city know that we're registering our building as vacant, and we're gonna, but it's a wording thing, you know, if we're gonna make changes, I think that would be an appropriate change.
Is there a way, Mike, to be able to, say, if you allow us in to inspect your building?
That's waived.
Huh?
Then the fee's waived.
Yes, thank you, that's exactly what I was getting at, then the fee is waived. If you don't, it's a little bit like, you know, the assessor's coming around to reassess all these values. Well, I'm not gonna let them in my house. Well, you go ahead, but I guarantee you're gonna be on the high side. I'm not sure that's the right posture. But people are, you know, saying that that's fine. It's not my posture, but, so, yes, if you allow us in, the fee is waived. If you don't allow us in,
Or don't respond.
yeah, or, yes.
You could add an exception if that's what the council wanted to do. Likewise, there's permits and fees in everyday business that sometimes get collected, sometimes don't. I mean, the yard that's a nuisance that you need to get mowed, I mean, you give them a warning and then they take care of it. You don't automatically go to assessing that fine.
Right, right.
You know, either way.
Rob, when this came up, you were approached by some owners. Was there a sense of urgency as far as the expectation of timing? Is there something critical and specific we're looking to make sure gets addressed or not?
The intention is to, you know, have this be a tool that would help downtown business owners as soon as possible. But, I mean, it isn't.
So it's important but not urgent.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think and it's not perfect, and nothing's going to be perfect. And it's one tool that we can use to, you know, along with what John was discussing of, you know, pursuing avenues to buy buildings and those types of things. And I don't think, with the exceptions of having the building for lease or for sale, or listed for sale or for lease, that it's an overreach. I think it's a necessary tool that we need for those that have invested, in some cases, millions of dollars in their buildings downtown. You know, and let's not forget, we are pretty significant building owners downtown too, as a city. So we have neighbors here that certainly could be a negative detriment to our buildings that we own. So.
Can I say something on that answer to Mike?
Could you come up to the mic?
I sure can. So to answer that question, there's not a sense of urgency per se, but it's been going on for years. So it was brought to my attention back in September when I started, and I approached Rob about it. It is doing, just the talk, is doing exactly what we wanted it to do. We don't want to have any more legal stuff. That's not the intention. It's not the intention of the city to pick up buildings. It's not to charge people more money. The idea is to fill those buildings if you can. If you can't, and you'd like to have a business in it, to have a business available, if you are not going to be able to do either of those because of the economy, which we do understand, then at least bring it up to the standard of the downtown. Lamar's takes such pride in everything we do that seeing those buildings with the storefronts that aren't painted or up to par, that's what we're looking for. So in that short amount of time, like Zach mentioned, we've talked to him. He's got some wonderful ideas. And then also, we took a stroll the other day, so the old JCPenney's building had a little facelift the other day, so they painted and sealed it. There's a new pop-up store that is in there, so it's doing exactly what we wanted. It's not, we don't want to put any more, we're not trying to stir the pot, if you will. We just want it to express what all of you want from Lamar's, and that was the intention. As far as sense of urgency, though, I mean, I think some of those buildings have been vacant. You guys can correct me because I haven't been here that long, but 5 or 6 years.
Quite a while.
Yeah.
There's no
And
way.
so we're just looking for something to happen, and it has. So that was the intent of Main Street, and so whatever you guys can do to help us with that is what we're looking for. The business owners that do have buildings downtown just want to make sure that they're safe. And I agree with you, Clark, that there are buildings that you're not sure, and some of them don't even have access. You have to go 2 doors down to get up into it, and if they're not friendly with you, you might not be able to see what's going on. So there are some other issues besides that. We're not looking for that part. We just wanted to, present the downtown the way the rest of Lamar's does. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. The notices that went out to all the property owners in the historic downtown district has created a lot of interest and rightfully so, and I think it's good activity, good interest. But the intention is not to punish vacant building owners. It's to incentivize vacant building owners who are not taking care of their buildings.
Sure.
That's what it's for.
Under this, am I allowed to have a vacant building?
Absolutely.
You are. I mean, as long as your annual or, to be determined, but you fill out your annual paperwork and you can have a vacant building, okay?
You can't have a vacant, or decrepit vacant building that's falling down and is hurting the property value.
What's the point of making them turn the utilities off?
What was the question, Brett?
What's the point of making them turn the utilities off?
Chief Shipper, can we get your comment on the utilities off or on?
Well, we can
I
talk about,
visited with them about that.
if you leave the water on, and say you live, you're not even around here. I mean, we can talk about a bunch of hypotheticals, but I own a building, I live in Arizona, okay? I don't care whether it's full or not. I leave the water on, it freezes in the wintertime, it busts, it's leaking inside, it's leaked from the top floor through the main floor to the basement. Nobody's ever inside to see it. Shut the water off, that freezing probably won't happen. We could talk about all the other utilities. I mean, something could happen with all those other ones. So if we know that they're shut off, most likely not gonna be a problem with them.
I think your biggest issue is public access, or access. That's what we need, just access. All our codes, 145, chapter 364, parentheses 12 in the Code of Iowa, all talks about the city has a right to require the repair or removal of any dangerous building. The problem with 145, the problem with 364 in the Code of Iowa is dangerous. Proving that something is dangerous, meaning electrical, fire code, structural engineer, all these people have to come in and take a look at that to prove something's dangerous. I don't think by using 145, we're not out to prove something technically is dangerous. We just want to prove that it's safe, and that's the way to look at it. But we have to have access to public buildings. And if you've contacted somebody for 2 years and they don't answer you, then you need to have something that says you can take a peek. When we go in on a fire call, I will tell you this, we don't inspect apartments regularly. We do initially when they're built. If we go there on a fire call or an EMS call and we see something that's wrong, we make it get corrected. And we've done that with some of Coley's at one point above the barber shop. We added fire alarm up there. We added sheetrock, new doors. But we don't regularly inspect apartments. We don't.
How is it you got into the highlight?
That was a liquor license. We
That
did
was,
liquor
okay,
license
so, okay,
inspections.
I was curious how you got, okay.
And we treat it as one building. I've done Zach's building. Zach, haven't I? Several times to make sure that Rumors Bar met the liquor license code. And Zach has fixed things over the years that clients break when they come in or whatever happens when you're at a bar. But as far as the other buildings, unless they're on fire, or unless we smell gas coming from them or something, there's no way even for us to get in. So that's what needs to happen. If you want this to happen, you have to have accessibility. Then everything after that falls into place. And we're not out to close anybody down, as you said. We're not out to rent buildings. We're not out to buy buildings. We're just out to make sure we have safe buildings, if that's what you want to do. You know, we can help with that on the fire code side as well.
And I just want to, I guess, make a clarification, because I'm sure the council isn't aware of it. I did get an email from one of the council members. But first off, I want to thank Zach for coming in and listening today and talking, because there was an issue with his building. Him and I had been playing phone tag for a long time. I'd call him, he'd leave a voicemail, he'd call me back and leave a voicemail. It took a while to connect, but we did finally connect and talked about the issue, and within a very short period of time, it was taken care of. So, but something I do want to briefly just bring up, you know, it talks about making sure the building meets code. Buildings don't have to meet today's code unless there is a major renovation to that. Now, if they're gutting an entire building and taking it down to the studs and gonna start over from scratch with just a shell, yes, it needs to meet today's code. Some of these buildings were built in the 1880s, 1900s. They most likely didn't have much, if any, of a building code back then, or electrical code, or a plumbing code. And as long as it's functioning properly and it's not causing a problem, they don't have to bring anything up to today's code. And I've even talked with the state electrical inspector. You got this old, what do they call it, ball and knob type tubing?
Knob and tube. Knob and tube.
Knob and tube. Tubing in a lot of these old structures and homes, and as long as it's not causing a problem, it meets code. So, you know, a person doesn't want to say it's gotta meet code, because it only has to meet the code of the time in which it was built. And unless there's a major renovation or an addition taking place, then that has to meet today's code. So that's just a clarification more than anything. So.
I would tell you, if you want to look at 100.35 in the Code of Iowa, Rules of Marshal, that's what gives me, as a fire chief, the right to enter a building. But I have to have certain reasons. But then I can tell John, hey, 8 o'clock Thursday, I want to be in your building, and I'm going in, whether John wants me to or not. But that's based on some fire issues. You know, that's not footings, windows missing, that kind of thing. But there is some verbiage in there in the Rules of Marshal of reasonable entry. That's what I think you need added to this somehow, or put in there.
I think if you started doing that, we'd have a Judge Bradley situation with you.
I mean, it would be,
I mean,
I've used it.
I know, but I mean, if we did that with several of the downtown properties that are, anyway, it would make you a very unpopular.
Well, I think that's what you're looking for, Rob, is access, right?
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. It's reasonable. It's not 2 in the morning. It's after you've attempted to get a hold of them, or you've actually got a hold of them and they told you yes or no, or I'll meet you there, and then I can't meet you there, and all that kind of stuff.
So what's our process now? We've got this hearing and first reading, attempt to things, but we got changes we wanna make. What do we gotta do now?
So that's where I was gonna go, Mike. Number one, section 161.5, permit required. I'm gathering from the conversation that we wanna add a line that says permits shall be required to be renewed annually. Right, so it's an annual renewal, that's number one. Section 161.7, exceptions. We wanna add, in reference to Mr. Meese's comments, a building in the midst of active rehabilitation, construction, or remodeling, evidenced by a valid building permit, or as determined by the City of Lamar's code enforcement officer, are not in need of a vacancy permit. So those are the two changes that I've gathered at this point. There's been a recommendation to go from 180 to 365 days, but I've only heard from one councilman on that. So is that something that there's interest in or not?
I would agree with that.
Same.
Sure.
Okay? So those are the three changes that I have written down.
Mike, how about the Iowa licensed real estate broker or salesperson? Can you add a provision in there when we discuss about a property owner who doesn't go through a salesperson?
Jason mentioned he saw something in some other ordinances, and I haven't. I mean, I'd want to look into that a little bit before I can give you exact legal. I mean, are you saying that it has to be listed within the 50% of appraised value, or?
Well, I think it's, like John said, I
150%,
mean, if he wants to actively lease or sell his building with a sign, he should be able to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so I don't know how we word that.
I mean, for sale by owners, totally legal.
I mean, so do you just take out the whole Iowa licensed real estate broker or salesperson? And just have a building
Yeah, you could.
actively
That's
listed for
wrong.
sale or lease?
I would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're taking out by an Iowa licensed real estate broker or salesperson. Okay?
I would like to remove the bit about not being able to have anything in the windows.
Which one's, where's that?
161 4B.
Yeah, I got hung up on that one too.
Which one, Brian? Where at?
161.4B, the last sentence.
What are the other code,
All first floor and ground level windows, doors, openings shall be free of any posters, paper, fabric coverings except for required legal notices. Strike
What does that
that.
accomplish?
It hides a mess, probably, I'm guessing.
I looked through several ordinances like this and they went both ways. Some wanted and even gave out paper to put over your windows. So you didn't look in them. So I don't know how I feel either way about that, but
Part of the kind of the deal is they want some of the windows covered because they don't want people to see the mess and they want to hide that mess like you just said.
yeah, so I don't know how I feel about it.
But there has to be a way to differentiate from that and the typical use of, you know, you got your political thing or your fundraiser thing, or, I mean, different signs.
Maybe it'd be easier just to strike that.
that
completely.
last sentence?
Agreed.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so with this many changes, is there anything else?
I'm still torn on the utilities thing. Because it says if you're using the building for storage, it's unoccupied, but how can you use it for storage if you don't have power to go in there and find your stuff?
Flashlight.
Yeah, you should see the storage at the top of the courthouse, you have to have a light. There's bats up there too, so.
I'm still really leaning towards tweaking the ordinance we have on the books. Guys, I can't get by, we're saying a vacant building versus vacant levels that haven't been darkened for years. And so we're picking and choosing, and I'm not,
I would agree with that.
I say we need to look at a different avenue.
Amending that other one to add some ability to get in.
Some ability to get in for safety reasons or just periodic checks. I don't think that's outrageous at all. I don't think that's overreach.
Right, I think a lot of people are okay with the checks. It's just the fact that some people feel like they're trying to be told what they can and cannot do with their.
Right, one thing that I really like about this ordinance is defined ownership. If it's an LLC that's in Zimbabwe and California, you know, you can't get a hold of it, but you have to have, I like things here, I support a lot of this. But if we have property owners that just aren't returning calls, I'm gonna work on that this week.
I think we would have all kinds of issues trying to find access in that other part of the ordinance. And I think it's gonna lead to arguments over why, maybe even lawsuits.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Rob. I would have to review that. I didn't review that code section. I don't have it in front of me. I'd want to look at it first, but I do prefer, if we're trying to target vacant buildings, that it be its own ordinance. I think that'd be best, with the changes that have been discussed.
So, Ron, why is this so different than any other building?
Why what?
Why is this so different that you feel you can gain access easier through this ordinance versus the other ordinance?
Because I think having a vacant building is the worst thing that you can do to a building downtown.
You got downtown, you got a lot of development going on 12th Street, you got development going on
Right,
the highway.
and those haven't received millions of dollars in government aid to fix up their buildings.
And there were things to sign in order to get that aid.
Yeah, and they also don't have common walls on their buildings. These are unique, these buildings downtown are unique properties in Lamar's. The other unique thing with those downtown buildings is that the money you invest, the money you've invested in your building, most likely isn't coming back to you. When you sell it. I mean, unless you had government aid, which, you know, paid for 75% of the renovations. If you would have done those 100% yourself, there's no way you would ever see the money back. Okay, so this is a protection for those people that have invested their hard-earned dollars in their building so that their neighbor can't screw it up for them. Okay, these are unique properties in that there's a responsibility of ownership, and you'll never build it back the way it is now. Never in a million years would you do that. You never